Dinghai Fusheng Records, Extra Chapter. LuYing Chapter. See you off at the eastern gate of Bugger. In the vast desert, fire beacons were reaching out to the sky. Dong dong dong. At the corner of the sandy soil, the sound of the rusty bell rang. The defenders of Laizu were startled and woke up in an instant. They saw the smoke and dust traveled upward in the distance. A huge army was covering the sky and overpowering the earth as it came towards them. The town defenders sounded the bell as their lives depended on it, making the people in that village town rush to hide inside their houses in succession. Immediately afterward, arrows rained inside the town and filled the entire sky. The defenders rotated the winch, and the wooden gate, which was equipped with sharp spikes, slammed shut. LuYing took out the arrow from one of the casualties. After the arrow made a clang sound and fell into the plate, he went to wash his hands at once. The person he was treating was a young soldier, who kept twitching while he was lying on the couch. The basin was dyed red with blood, and LuYing slowly washed his hand while voices of the bell continuously traveled in the distance, ringing one after another to urge the people to take refuge. LuYing. A Simu man broke in and anxiously said, "The Ionians are coming. We have to go." LuYing motioned for that Simu man to look at the youth who was lying. His chest and abdomen were exposed, and he was mumbling something in his coma. The arrow stuck in his abdomen had already been removed, but his whole body still had a high fever. The Simu man was wrapped in a burlap robe, had a tall and sturdy build, and was leaning on a cane. He took out a sword from inside the cane. The blade glinted in the cold light. It was too late. Soon enough, Laizu's fortifications were going to be breached, and this fire beacon tower, which had existed since the Han era, would be consumed by the fire of war. "Pick him up, LuYing said. "Take him home. Let him return to his parents' side." The Simu man was called Diogenes. He had an unruly and dark brown hair, a pair of turquoise-green eyes, a prominent nose and deep-set eyes, a slim face and shaved pale jawline, as well as a well-defined Adam's apple. He knew that LuYing couldn't be persuaded to leave no matter what, for this man was even more stubborn than the fire beacon tower, so he could only pick up the youth and push open the door. Inside the house, LuYing sat down and drank a bit of water. He heard the distant sounds of people fighting outside of the city getting closer and closer to him. An Ionian cavalry broke into the house with a vicious look in his face. When he saw LuYing, who was dressed in white, he gave out another smile filled with malicious intent. He put away his scimitar and came forward, wanting to drag LuYing away, but LuYing just raised his head and glanced at him. Some moments later, LuYing pushed and went through the door. The small town of Laizu in front of him had already been overflowed with blood, and corpses were everywhere in sight. A defender who had fought to his death leaned against the wall, his blood staining the wall red. LuYing reached out to check on the victim's neck and side, but then, he heard the bell ringing from the top of the mountain again. "Xiansheng!" The people who were fleeing shouted, "To the mountain! Quick! They're coming!" LuYing turned his head to look at the city walls. The earthen walls had almost collapsed and the Ionians had begun to set fire. Smoke billowed, and the flames burned along the city walls, making the earthen walls charred red and condensing them into glittering fragments of colored glazes. The small town of Laizu covered an area of fewer than 1.4 mu, and was a garrison town under Bugger's jurisdiction. In the third year of Taishu, during the Wu Emperor's rule, Li Guangli attacked Bugger and established the Protectorate of the Western Regions there to rule over all the states of the Western Regions. Bugger meant feather-toed eagle in Old Uyghur. With the separation of government during the Three Kingdoms era at the end of the Han Dynasty and its reunification by the Jin Dynasty afterwards, after the Taikang period, the Jins gradually lost the strength needed to govern over Bugger. And so, the Protectorate of the Western Regions became more disconnected with the Central Plains day by day. Nowadays, following the conclusion of the uprising of the Five Hus, Bugger had already turned into a fortress inhabited by people of various ethnicities. From generations to generations, its defenders had guarded the border of the Central Plains, eternally waiting for a change of station order that would never arrive. With the great chaos happening in the Central Plains and the rise of various armed forces on the frontier region, factions came and went one after another, and the Ionian cavalry also crossed over the Pamir Plateau and began to invade the protectorate of the western regions. "I'd rather die than surrender," shouted a city defender. LuYing followed the people and ran towards the mountain. The mountain wasn't high. In the presence of Mount Tengri and Mount Koro, the mountain behind the small town of Laizu could only be regarded as a small earth slope. On the said slope, there was an altar out in the open, enshrining the statue of the Uyghurs. "Xiansheng! Xiansheng!" The town's children raced up to hide behind LuYing, who seemed to be the only person they could rely on. "Where's your father? Mother?" LuYing asked the dozens of children. "Your big brother." The children pointed at the city, and their crying gradually stopped. LuYing knew that the children's families, no matter men or women, had all gone to help defend the city. Laizu had already ignited a beacon requesting aid from the main city of Bugger. However, the reinforcements from the main city were limited. Only around 3,000 arrived, while before their eyes, there were over 10,000 Ionian cavalry. Xiansheng! Diogenes, the Simu man, crossed over the crowd and came to LuYing's side. "We have to go. We had agreed before that we wouldn't stay here for too long." LuYing gazed down the mountain. Half of Laizu had already turned into a sea of flames. "Just wait, okay?" LuYing said in a soft voice. "Maybe it still can take a turn for the better." Diogenes sighed but didn't insist anymore. He went to sit next to LuYing soon after. The children crowded around, sitting on the ground by LuYing's knee. Some people leaned their heads against LuYing's legs, and he gently stroked their heads to give them courage. The Ionians retreated their army at nightfall. A crescent moon rose. Its clear, cold light was illuminating this scarred world. After the Ionian cavalry had broken through the city wall, they retreated and camped outside the city in order to rest and recuperate. Laizu had lost more than half of its 2,000 defenders. There were only 800 men left, yet, at this moment, they still devotedly circled the foot of the mountain and fortified the defensive line. They were waiting for the reinforcements to come, or else, by the sunrise, it would be complete annihilation. Sounds of weeping could be heard all over the place until the latter half of the night, when the cries gradually died down. Diogenes was sitting in front of the bonfire, compiling his notes regarding the Central Plains mountains, plains, and large rivers. The notes also recorded its roads, cities, towns, local specialty products such as silks, salts, jades, rouges, lacquerwares, teas, and spices, as well as its various types of hideous monsters, and also its grand, magnificent buildings. This was a precious record kept by him during 3 years of venturing through the Central Plains amidst the chaos of war. Only, the great Jin Empire of the East had been destroyed by the fire of war brought by the barbarian races. He and LuYing met in Dukhan. He taught LuYing Latin, while LuYing translated the Divine Land's Central Plains ancient seal scripts for him. They traveled together to Bugger, and they were about to set out further west once more. "Xiansheng," a child softly said, "will praying have any use?" LuYing said, "There's no harm in praying. It might not have any use, but at least it can give you courage." "Why won't it have any use?" asked another youth. "Is it because God can't hear us?" When LuYing didn't answer, the child who had spoken before said to the youth, "He hears, but it's not necessary for him to come and save us." "Why? Is it because we aren't devout enough?" said another person. "God has mercy for the world." Diogenes looked up from his notes and said in a non-standard Uyghur, "But mortals have mortals' tribulations, which you need to live through on your own. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's." Diogenes closed his notes and looked at LuYing. his eyes filled with a question, "When will we leave?" LuYing said towards the children, "Let us pray, and maybe God will hear our words." Yes. And so, in the darkness of night, the children got up and followed LuYing to the statue. There were oil lamps in front of the statue, and the children knelt on the ground one after another. Diogenes tightly held LuYing's wrist and softly said, "Xiansheng, the Ionians will start besieging the city again at dawn. No reinforcements will come, you can't save anyone in the city. You have to think of a way to protect yourself." LuYing nodded his head and smiled at Diogenes, who had completely lost his temper. Venus, signifying dawn, gradually rose from the east, and marble-white color appeared on the horizon. A bugle horn sound was heard from outside of the city. The decisive battle for Laizu had begun, and its final 800 or so defenders were incomparably tragic. With rusty weapons in their hands, they chanted the ballad of the western regions. "All things made of ashes shall return to ashes, and dust to dust. I shall become one with this wind-blown sand, and the wind shall carry my voice to the distant land. Provide us with the Holy Spirit which nurtures the passing of time as well as the Mother Earth. The Paramitha of light and shadow, O deity of mine." In front of the statue, LuYing softly said, "May you treat all with the same kindness, and guide the lost to cross over this river." The children heard the screams coming from the distant place, which was immediately followed by the roars of 10,000 stampeding horses and the collapse of the earthen walls. Under the assault of 10,000s of people, Laizu's houses were easily destroyed, falling apart as if hit by the hurricane. Those ruthless iron hooves were on the verge of flattening the fire beacon tower that had existed for 400 years. The Ionians were about to brandish their blades to slaughter children who were even shorter than wheels, deprive Laizu's residents of the statue of their god, and turn the entire place into a bloody ravine. "If you hear me," LuYing looked up and softly said, "I pray to you, relieve us from the suffering of mortals." It was at this moment that the morning star flashed and then blossomed in pure radiance. The milky-colored glow of the dawn was ephemeral, and the Milky Way, which was about to disappear soon, turned into stars that fell all over the sky. Amidst the sound of the bugle horn, in the distance, came a long howl of a beast. Diogenes rose in disbelief and looked to the east. LuYing was draped in white robes which fluttered under the morning breeze. He was still kneeling before the statue. When he opened his eyes, he saw a huge shadow under the eastern canopy. The children opened their eyes one after another and shouted excitedly. In a split second, the Ionians' horses lost their heads out of fear, neighing non-stop. "I heard you," a man's voice echoed beneath the sky. A giant indigo wolf stepped across the river of stars and let out a roar that swept things away like a raging sea. The giant wolf was 10 jong tall. It stepped out from the horizon, and houses which it trampled upon crumbled like pieces of earth lumps, and the remaining walls that were yet to fall completely collapsed under its might. "I heard you," the man's voice sounded once more. "I heard you calling for me." The giant wolf immediately rushed into the battle and crashed into the Ionians' battle formation of over 10,000 cavalries. At once, all of the enemies were frightened stiff, the order of retreat sounded and blood-curdling screeches came from all over the place. The Ionians' horses, which were claimed to be the masters of the divine land's central plains, couldn't withstand even a single blow from the wolf, and they all neighed in fear and rushed up to flee. The giant wolf squinted his eyes and lazily looked into the distance. A circle of pure white fur around its neck made its face more elegant and outstanding. Wolf God. One by one, the residents of Laizu kowtowed towards the place where the giant wolf was located. The battle ended at the lightning speed, the Ionian cavalry trampled on each other and rolled away just like the ebb tide. The giant wolf held both their leader and his horse with its mouth before flinging them far away. The Ionians' leader fell to the ground and made a muffled sound of body collision. LuYing raised his head and carefully looked up at the statue on the slope's summit. It was the wolf of Tengri Mountains, the one who had nurtured the ancestors of the Uyghurs. The figure of the grey wolf faded under the light of the sun, leaving only a tall and straight figure of a 20-year-old young man. The youth was half naked, showing his well-defined, muscular chest and lower abdomen. He wore a pair of martial trousers and was carrying a dagger on his waist. His hair was arranged into many fine braids that went up the back of his head, and around his neck, he had a gold and jade plate that was tied with a red string. With indifference and provocation in his eyes, he glanced at the chaotic battlefield before turning around and walking over towards the mountain. "I heard you," he said towards the mountain. "Xiao Shan," LuYing said on the mountain, "you came after all." End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Extra chapter. Note: this is a post-canon extra set about 5 to 6 years after the main text. Jianghu. 10th year of Taiyuan period. After the Battle of the Fei River and Fujian's death, the age of peace once again returned to the south while chaos reigned constantly throughout the north. The Dis, Xianbais, Jis, and many other clans waged war against one another, causing the common people to suffer a lot of hardships. Refugees plundered all over the place, and many people fell into banditry. Outside Shanyan County, there were only abandoned, old village settlements on both sides of the road. The autumn was blowing its cold and chilly gusts, yet amidst that barren scenery, a bridal send-off procession wearing all red, with people blowing and beating instruments to create many kinds of lively sounds, was moving along. A bridal sedan chair, which was pulled by a horse, was also present, along with a donkey cart carrying the dowry following it. "Why haven't they come yet?" Bored with nothing to do, the bride inside the carriage was currently cracking melon seeds. Facing the carriage curtain, the bride told the people outside, "What kind of joyful music is this, you people play so badly ba." From the send-off team to the coachman and even the performers, all of them were trembling in fear, to the point their suanas were all blocked up by their own saliva. A musician scowled miserably as they said, "Day, it's not that we're playing badly on purpose, it's just, we're really scared. I told you there's no need to be afraid." The bride waved his hand to the outside before saying, "Slow down." A gust of chill wind blew from inside the ravine. All of a sudden, an arrow flew in with a whoosh and landed right on top of the bridal sedan. Hula from both sides of the road, mountain bandits appeared one after another as they let out a belly of savage laughter. "It's finally the time, mwahahahahaha." Mountain Bandit A snarled, "If you don't want to die, freeze." The entire procession stopped moving that instant. After receiving information, these mountain bandits had squatted in this place for a long time before finally catching this big fish. The ringleader of said bandit gang, with a saber slung over his shoulder, moved forward with swagger. With smiles plastered all over his face, he opened the carriage curtain using the edge of his saber to look in, and saw a graceful and remarkable bride sitting upright inside, dressed in magnificent attire. The bride's face was covered with a veil. "Little Niangzi," the ringleader said, "come with us ba. I guarantee you won't be treated shabbily." As he spoke, the ringleader brought his hand forward, wanting to take the bride's veil off. But then, the bride suddenly shook both of her sleeves and did a chain punch as she shouted, "Eat my punch." Never in his life did the ringleader ever think that there would come a male voice from under the veil. Stupefied, he was caught off guard and ate that punch head-on, shouting immediately afterward. Meanwhile, ShuXing turned to the side and, pressing against the front of the carriage, he first gave him another punch before proceeding to strike the other party with his leg, kicking that ringleader over to the ground. He, ShuXing said, "I've been waiting for you guys for quite a while, too." Appearing in the bandit's side was ShuXing, wearing a woman's wedding dress, both of his hands on his hips. Then, throwing the veil to one side, he faced the sky as he let out 3 unrestrained laughs. Running somewhere. Silence befell all corners. After barely managing to crawl up, the ringleader, with a bloody nose and a swollen face, glared at Chen Xing, who was currently surrounded by dozens of black-hearted mountain bandits armed with weapons in 4 corners and 8 directions. Chen Xing looked left and right, but as he was about to say something, someone already shouted, "Yaa, don't kill me, ah!" In an instant, the bridal procession, who had already been scared shitless, scattered all over the place. Chen Xing. He, the ringleader once again approached Chen Xing and sneered. "What a violent little Niangzi, I like it." Wei. Chen Xing looked at his surroundings and also sneered. "Don't come over, ah. Be careful not to let this Xiao beat you to death. Look at my world-shattering meteor bow. A man. Whatever. Bring him back. A man is also fine." Holding a slingshot that was faintly emitting light in his hand, Chen Xing knocked a pebble, yet the bandits weren't in the slightest bit afraid. After all, there was safety in numbers, and moreover, Chen Xing only had 1 slingshot. So what if 1 or 2 stones hit them on the face? Wei. After retreating again and again, Chen Xing finally shouted in the end, "Help me." The moment this "help me" sounded, a dragon roar similar to the sound of a powerful army echoed from a distant location. Golden light burst off on the horizon, and amidst the wilderness, a figure dressed in a sunset red shot out, flying toward the spot where the bride's escort party was being robbed. Appearing on the bandits' side was Xiang Shu, in his magnificent bridegroom attire, urging his mighty horse to move faster. With a steelyard in his hand, he loudly shouted, "Xia! You!" Xiang Shu reined his horse in the middle of the road and looked at Chen Xing expressionlessly. The mountain bandits shifted their attention immediately. Knowing that a big shot had arrived, they bent their bows and knocked the arrows before shooting at Xiang Shu, one after another. Xiang Shu was practically blowing his top. The 2 of them had been on their way to pass through Shanyan County when they had asked for lodging at a large family's house. There, they learned that the nearby mountain bandits were going rampant, even threatening to rob the bride on the day the daughter of the family head was about to be married, making them worry so much they had no idea what to do. Chen Xing had then volunteered to eliminate those pests for common people. And so, he chose an auspicious day based on the celestial chart and did enough of a wedding ceremony as a show to deceive the mountain bandits. Xiang Shu was dressed as the bridegroom, while Chen Xing was disguised as the bride. However, since Xiang Shu had wasted a lot of time changing to his wedding attire, Chen Xing didn't feel like waiting for him and came out ahead of time. Of course, before this, the 2 also had a quarrel over a very small matter, probably along the lines of which fork to take on the road or some other minutiae, which made them ignore each other the next day. Only now was Xiang Shu finally invited back to the scene. "Who was shouting 'help me'?" asked Xiang Shu in a cold and indifferent manner. He was waiting for Chen Xing to make peace first. "Ah, yes, ah." Chen Xing, who was currently surrounded by a group of mountain bandits, remained unruffled in face of a crisis. Unperturbed, he sized them up as he asked, "I'm asking you all, who was shouting 'help me'?" "Mountain bandits. What were you running so fast for?" Finally fed up with it, Xiang Shu approached Chen Xing in a rage. Chen Xing asked, "Didn't you have to change your clothes? And dress up? You beautiful man, ah! With those little jijis surrounding you, I didn't think you could spare the time, so I just came here first, LA. So, why haven't you started yet?" Chen Xing asked Xiang Shu. Xiangshu retorted, "Sort it out yourself. Don't you run very fast." No matter how foolish those mountain bandits were, they could see that these two people were on the same team. Since Chen Xing had no combat strength, they would deal with him later after eliminating Xiangshu. And thus, the bandits rushed forward. Flicking his hand, Xiangshu intended to use the steel yard, which was meant to be used for lifting up the bridal veil. He wanted to conveniently use the steel yard weight to replicate a meteor hammer, but he didn't expect that Chen Xing over there would escape the encirclement and draw on his slingshot. Whoosh! Chen Xing immediately shot stones upon stones in rapid succession. Surprisingly, the pebbles shot by that slingshot could actually follow the bandits' tracks. In the air, they drew arcs in all directions, whizzing as they chased after the mountain bandits, eventually catching up with them. This was Chen Xing's latest weapon design that was intended to take someone by surprise on the back of their head, all with a prerequisite: Xiangshu was there to attract people's attention for him. By the time the mountain bandits realized there was a surprise attack from behind, it was already too late. Xiangshu had barely thrown off the steel yard weight when those mountain bandits had already fallen all over the place in chaos. Xiangshu! Chen Xing! Chen Xing mounted the donkey after managing to catch up with it. Xiangshu impatiently said, "Where are you going this time?" "I'm going to take out the bandits' lair," Chen Xing said. "You go back ba." Xiangshu was so damn frustrated. "Chen Xing, this guy, has actually started to eat vinegar?" Though when you think about it, eating vinegar is proof that Chen Xing truly loves him. This made Xiangshu's mood turn complicated. He didn't know whether he should be angry or take advantage of this. "Donkey is too slow," Xiangshu said, "Get on the horse ba." Chen Xing looked at him. Since riding on a donkey like this truly wouldn't get him there even until the sky turned dark, he got on the horse. Xiangshu shouted "Chia!" And spurring the horse as fast as possible, they left the place. One Shishan later, Shanyan County's martial god stronghold. "Who?" The whole stronghold was startled. "Here to deliver to you the bride," Xiangshu shouted before dismounting from his horse and launching a one-sided mass beating. Crash! Chen Xing was still fiddling with his guided slingshot when he saw Xiangshu, holding the steel yard in one hand with his legs slightly apart in the middle of the stronghold, stood tall and mighty in a way similar to Mount Tai, fallen mountain bandits all around him. Chen Xing still had something he wanted to try. After all of the mountain bandits had fallen, he shot one last pebble. But the pebble, which couldn't locate any enemy, turned around and flew towards Xiangshu. Turning his back to Chen Xing, Xiangshu nimbly raised his hand without even looking and caught the pebble with a pow. Chen Xing wiped his sweat. Next time, he needed to count the exact number of people, otherwise, if they were all knocked down already, the rest of the active ones would turn back and target themselves. Satisfied, Xiangshu glanced at Chen Xing. The chief of the martial god stronghold struggled to crawl away while groaning to himself. Chen Xing was sizing Xiangshu up when he saw that this martial god stronghold was decorated with lanterns and banners. The chief, who had been waiting for a wife, had properly arranged the place in advance. Under the red candle light, the scene looked very ambiguous. Xiangshu looked at his surroundings before turning his head to look at Chen Xing, whose appearance looked incomparably charming. Chen Xing went up to the chief's throne and sloppily sat down. He then said with a smile, "I guess it's barely enough to be counted as satisfying." "Yo, the sky has gotten dark." Looking out, Xiangshu pondered for a while before picking up the veil and casually throwing it. The veil flew toward Chen Xing and landed, safe and secure, on his head. When Chen Xing was about to say something, Xiang Shu came forward. And then, using the steel yard, he raised the veil and threw it aside. Get down, that is De Wang's seat, Xiang Shu motioned to Chen Xing. Chen Xing laughed and asked, where do I sit then? After sitting down, Xiang Shu looked around before patting his own thigh and said, De Wang allows you to sit on his leg. Does De Wang want to eat grapes? Chen Xing saw that there were all kinds of fruits on the side. Bringing them over, he pretended to feed Xiang Shu before pinching the fruit on his face at the last moment and causing the juice to spurt on Xiang Shu's face. Xiang Shu restrained Chen Xing, which prompted him to immediately beg for mercy. "Ai! Don't play anymore. I'm not playing with you," Xiang Shu said as he pressed Chen Xing into the mountain bandit's chief's throne, red candles reflecting on both people who were still on their wedding attires. There is a well-decorated bridal chamber at the back. Chen Xing said, let's go there and have fun. And thus, Xiang Shu proceeded to lift Chen Xing in a princess carry before moving to the back room. The next day, at the first glimmer of dawn, Chen Xing and Xiang Shu rode together on a horse and left Shanyan. Where to next? Asked Xiang Shu. Go west ba. Chen Xing smiled. You once said, you would bring me all the way until we leave the Central Plains and go to places we've never been. Extra end.